Here to discuss all of this and more, I want to bring in Mike Van Meter. He's the Republican candidate running in Virginia's 11th District against Gerry Connolly. Mike, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, thanks. I was getting excited there. I thought you were going to be having Gerry Connolly on, and I thought, well, finally somebody's found him.
Yeah, no, not today. Oh, not maybe tomorrow. We'll see. We'll keep asking. So Mike, let me first set up your bio for everybody who doesn't know. You are a military veteran. You're a guy who's worked in the FBI as well. Give people a sense of who you are, and because I think it'll add a lot to this conversation.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on the show. I was in the Navy for 8 years. I was a helicopter pilot, and then after I left the Navy, I was a DC police officer for 3 years, and then I went into the FBI for just under 21 years. Right. And then after that, when I retired, I went back to school, got another degree, and became a drug and alcohol counselor, which I do at a major hospital here in Northern Virginia. So I've served my nation ever since I was 19 years old to now. So that's my background.
Yeah, and so this week in the center of the news is this kerfuffle apparently at the Arlington National Cemetery. Now, it started with very little media coverage of President Trump's very decent and reverent presence alongside those Gold Star families this week. But since then, because the Biden administration, I guess, was embarrassed by that, they've tried to turn it into something scandalous. They're claiming that President Trump had a photographer and somebody got physical with Arlington National Cemetery staff, and that led to this, which is that Gerry Connolly is saying that whatever report Arlington National Cemetery has on this subject needs to be released. What do you think of his demand here?
Well, what I think of this is, number one, as you mentioned, the families asked for President Trump to be there. They did not. In fact, my understanding is they specifically asked that Biden and Harris and the rest of the Democrats not be there. That's the first thing I heard all along. Second of all, it's kind of curious that several days went by before this was even brought up, and no one really knows what he's talking about, because I did my own little investigation yesterday, and I called around to people that I know for a fact were there. And this includes people that were part of security, and they said that no one heard of any incident occurring other than there apparently was a person that was heckling President Trump, and he was there, and they were removed from the situation, and then everyone moved on. And everybody in the security detail was surprised that this was even an issue. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'd heard about.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'll just add what we know here, which is that whatever occurred, and even the Trump campaign is saying that something occurred. In fact, they alluded, I think, earlier this week, that maybe somebody was having some sort of mental episode when they tried to stop this photographer. But something occurred, but it was out of sight of the families. That's what I know, because they were gathering at Section 60, and this photographer was arriving. And Arlington officials began lunging in front of the camera to try and stop it from coming in after this was all agreed upon well in advance. So at every stage, it looks like Biden administration officials were trying to turn a very simple, solemn event with a former president of the United States into something chaotic, because they just didn't like the fact that it was being covered.
Yeah, and also let me just add a few other little nuggets to this. That the security people that I spoke to said that the families specifically asked that photos be taken of them with the president and the event. Yeah. And in fact, they were taking pictures with their own cameras, that this was something that they'd asked for. Furthermore, this notion that pictures are not taken at Arlington National Cemetery, they are taken at Arlington National Cemetery. After all, we have pictures of presidents, we have pictures of wreaths being laid, and these are things that they asked for. Also, I want to address this.
One other thing on what you just said. We have a literal campaign ad from Joe Biden in 2020 shot at Arlington National Cemetery. He has photos of him at Arlington in the ad. So this idea that, oh my goodness, I can't believe that anybody would ever include any of this imagery in anything politically involved. The current president of the United States did that in 2020.
Right. And this notion that this was strictly for political purposes, as opposed to trying to be a solemn ceremony where President Trump could honor the families at their request. And I keep on emphasizing that. As a candidate in Northern Virginia, Afterwards, I actually started calling around asking why none of the candidates, the Republican candidates, were notified that the president was in town. And what I was told repeatedly was that this was the president wanted, this was low key, that this was something that the president wanted to, at the request of the family, spend time with them. He did not want it to be an event. He did not want to publicize it. And that's why candidates such as myself were not included in this. It was not meant to be a political statement. It was something that he wanted to do to honor the families at their request. Now, when it comes to Gerry Connolly, I want to remind everyone, this is the man that called for a prison to be renamed in Florida after Donald Trump. And this is also a man that supported a bill to reduce protection, rather, on President Donald Trump. He is obsessed. Gerry Connolly is obsessed with Donald Trump. And this is where he spends his time. He's not spending his time working on the people for Northern Virginia. He spends more money. He is more concerned with spending money overseas rather than helping people here. He needs to go. He has Trump derangement syndrome. And I'm praying that we defeat this man and remove him from office on November 5th, because he has to go. President Trump, listen, I'm a veteran, and I can tell you that the veterans that I know and people who are active duty military despise Joe Biden. They despise Kamala Harris. And under no circumstances should Kamala Harris be commander in chief. And Gerry Connolly does not have a loved one on active duty military. I do. And the thought of her being the commander chief, or Tim Walz being anywhere near the White House, is just frightening to all of us. This is a critical election that we must win, and every single conservative needs to come out on November 5th and ensure that all of these people are removed from office.
Well, you just brought up an issue, I think, that really illuminates kind of who Gerry Connolly is. Here's a guy who's in Congress, and the legislation he's presenting is to rename prisons after Donald Trump because he thinks that it would be A, funny, I guess, and B, he's trying to express, using federal resources, that he thinks that Trump himself should be in jail. This is the kind of behavior we're getting out of the Democrat congressman in your district, in the 11th district. And that's just a guy who wants to abuse his power. He's saying it out loud, Mike Van Meter. He's putting his name on legislation to that effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this needs to be highlighted. It really does. And this is something that the American people need to understand, that if you want to get to the bottom of what happened with Russia collusion, if you want to know what's going on with any reports that the FBI has done, if you want to know what's on Hunter Biden's laptop, go down the litany of investigations that have been used to go after political enemies. January 6th, even. I mean, it's a long list of investigations that need to be done. If Democrats maintain power, you can forget ever getting to the bottom of this. But I can assure you, Vince, that if I get elected, we are going to get to the bottom of this, because, I really, the FBI, where I spent much of my adult life in, we need an FBI, and it needs to be revamped. It needs to be, we need to correct what's been going on, because we need these agencies. We need to restore the trust, and we will do that. Donald Trump will do that, and he'll do that with the support of people like me and others. But if they stay in office, you can forget. We're done. We're done.
Well, in other words, like, if you're a government official, if you're an elected official, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do here? The plan should be to fix the FBI, not to give them a brand new sparkly building as some sort of reward for all of their great work.
Correct.
Yeah.
That absolutely. That getting a new building is on the lowest end of the priority list for me as far as the FBI is concerned. We need to clean house over there, and we need to get them refocused on their mission. We need to get the Secret Service refocused on their mission. We need to get the Department of Defense refocused on their mission. They have one purpose and one purpose only, and that's what they need to be focused on. We need to get rid of these DEI programs. We need to get rid of all of the political correctness, and that includes over at the agency, and we're going to do that. And by the way, that's why they fight so hard to keep Donald Trump out of the White House, because they know this is coming. They know that it's going to be a new sheriff in town, and they're going to get people in there that are going to get these agencies focused on what they need to. And they need to do this because the world is a dangerous place right now. We are not ready for what's coming towards us. We're not ready at all. And there are many of us that recognize this. And I'm very proud to be serving or running, rather, in this election with a slate of veterans. We have a number of them here in Virginia, and I'm proud to be serving with these folks because we are people that have been there. We've been on the receiving end of orders that come from a commander-in-chief. And I just shudder at the thought of Harris being in office. I just shudder at that thought.
Let me. So I want to get your sense, almost as a reporter here on the state of politics in your region of Virginia, because this is the 11th district, and just to give people a mental image, that's essentially west and south of the Beltway. So wherever the Beltway kisses, all of that land outside of the Beltway in Virginia, a lot of it is the 11th district. And so in that area, as you go and you meet voters, you knock on doors, Mike Van Meter. Give us a sense of the temperature. What are you detecting as you have these conversations?
Oh, it's funny. I really get a sense that people are tired. They're tired of this, but they won't say it out loud because I'll go and I'll knock on the doors and they'll say, "Hey, we're behind you. We're going to support you." All right. Well, do you want a sign? Can I put a sign up in your yard? Oh, no, absolutely not. You're not going to put a sign up because these people will destroy our house. They will kill our cars. Just let that sink in for a minute. That should tell you everything you need to know about the left.
Can I tell you, I was talking to Chris Plant in the hallway the other day about this, and he had heard, this is a great idea, that if you put up one of those yard signs, it's a good way to make sure that people who share your views will probably move into your neighborhood. Like when they're cruising for homes and they're like, should we buy that house? They're like, oh, look at that person across the street. They got a Trump sign. They got a Mike Van Meter sign. Yeah, let's buy a house right here. It's a great sorting mechanism to put a sign like that. It's good for your property value.
Yes, but people feel that way. And Vince, here's what I know. That the Republicans that live in Northern Virginia have basically given up over the years because you're told over and over and over that we can't win. But the fact is that the majority of registered Republicans, and I know this because I've looked at the numbers, actually stay home during elections because they think there's no point in showing up. I'm imploring every person that's listening to me right now that is a conservative, you show up, you mail it in, you do early voting, whatever you got to do, you get your vote in, because the fact is that if we all show up, we might actually be surprised at the offices that we win. The people on the left are demoralized. I don't care what they're telling you. This sugar high they're going through with Harris, it's going to end pretty soon. Don't worry about that.
Well, they're lying about everything else. So why wouldn't they be lying about that?
Absolutely. Oh, and one other thing too, Gerry Connolly will not face it. This is another kind of a telltale thing for me, is he will not debate me. Interestingly enough, we have a debate scheduled for tonight, which he's been told. We've emailed him, we've called him, we've done all that, and he's not going to show up to it. We have 2 more scheduled after that. And even when we did a parade on the 4th of July, he was supposed to be in the stall next to us, and he was informed by his campaign staff that I was there, and he didn't bother to show up. He will not show up. He will not face me. He will not debate me. It sounds kind of like Harris too, right? And these people will not answer questions from the public regarding their policies because they're indefensible. What they're hoping is that they will just run this clock out, keep the sugar high going, and people will vote just because it's a feeling. Because the Democrats, it's based on feeling. We vote on facts. They vote on feeling. But if Gerry Connolly was behind all of his policies, to include this about the Arlington National Cemetery, so Gerry, if you're listening to me right now, meet us tonight, and I would really love to talk to you about this and answer these questions. We'll be fair. I'll be polite with you. But it's disrespectful to the voters that you don't show up and answer questions.
Yeah, and if there was in your case, a congressional debate going on, if I was supposed to be a part of it and I found out that I missed it, it'd be like one of those awful dreams, like you missed the exam. You're like, oh, I slept through it. Don't miss it. Here's your big chance. You can go and you can debate Mike Van Meter tonight. Hey, Mike, thank you as always, and give people your website. Let people know where to find you.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, it's vanmeterforvirginia.com, vanmeterforvirginia.com. Folks, get out and vote. We can take this government back. Thanks.
vanmeterforvirginia.com. Thank you very much. That's Mike Van Meter running in the 11th District against Democrat Gerry Connolly.